Tell Us About Yourself is sponsored by bonusround.ca, streaming Canada's classic game shows on demand. Dive into the golden age of television with thousands of episodes of Canadian series that defined an era from anywhere in the world, all for just $1.99 a month. From iconic shows like Let's Make a Deal and Definition to cult classics like Bumper Stumpers and The Mad Dash, bonusround.ca brings you timeless entertainment that's fun, enlightening, and affordable. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, relive the magic of Canadian television history. Subscribe now at bonusround.ca for $1.99 and turn every night into game show night. And by The Inn at Leola Village. Nestled in the heart of picturesque Pennsylvania, the Inn at Leola Village is a sanctuary of luxury and relaxation. Indulge in the timeless beauty of their historic suites, each meticulously designed to transport you to a bygone era of elegance and grace. Experience the culinary delights of their award-winning Italian restaurant, where every dish is a masterpiece crafted from the finest local ingredients. From romantic getaways to corporate retreats, the Inn at Leola Village offers a haven for every occasion. Unwind at the spa, stroll through the lush gardens, and let the stress of everyday life melt away. Make your reservation today at theinnatleolavillage.com or call the front desk at area code 717-656-7002. The Inn at Leola Village, an oasis of luxury. Tell Us About Yourself, Conversations with Game Show Contestants is produced in partnership with the Strong National Museum of Play in Rochester, New York, one of the largest history museums in the United States and one of the leading museums serving families with highly interactive exhibits and programs. Since 1968, the Strong Museum has been dedicated to exploring the ways in which play encourages learning, creativity, and discovery, and how it illuminates cultural history. And their National Archives of Game Show History. Founded by industry veterans Bob Bowden and Howard Blumenthal, the archive is home to thousands of artifacts representing over 80 years of broadcasting, including props, set designs, video interviews with game show professionals, and other iconic elements from the history of television at play. For more information about the National Archives of Game Show History or the Strong National Museum of Play, visit museumofplay.org or call area code 585-263-2700.
Blue 35.
Tell us about yourself, would you?
Tell us something about you.
For any new viewers, why don't you tell us again about yourself?
We've met before, but let's meet again. Tell us about yourself.
What else can you tell us about yourself?
Perhaps you'd fill us in again and tell us about yourself.
Definition: baby twin cowboys. Solution: Western sunset. And our solution to fun with a put on television is definition. And now, Pilgrim, here's the star of the show, Jim Barry.
I like that. That's a terrific Boris Karloff imitation. I thought that was... Hello there. Welcome to Definition. Let us welcome back our...
My name is Gail McWilliams. I was born and raised in Pickering, Ontario. I now live in Richmond Hill, Ontario. I am a client service administrator. And the company that I work with, we deal with hearing aids and hearing life and helping more people hear better.
Gail, tell me what role game shows played in your life growing up before you became a contestant on Definition. Were you a big game show fan back then?
I come from a large family, and we would have our evenings or our certain times, like after school or before dinner, where we would sit and we would watch television. We did have a few of the different game shows that we were really hooked on. I enjoyed watching them. We used to make up our own shows and competitions, actually watching commercials. We had 3 seconds before the commercial actually started to figure out what that commercial was going to be. I never dreamed of being on an actual game show on television. And as a family, we played a lot of different board games, and I enjoyed games like Scrabble and things that really made you think. And so when it came to the opportunity to be on Definition, I jumped at the chance. It was one of our favorite shows for watching as a family, and sitting around to be just guessing and seeing who could answer the most correct of the questions and solve the most puzzles.
Definition is a very mentally challenging show. It's a tough game to play, and it requires you to almost put yourself in a different sort of mind space to solve the puzzles on Definition, because they're all based around wordplay and puns and kind of what they call these days dad jokes, I think, before that term was even around.
Yes, I think that was the creation of dad jokes. Yeah, it was. I think most people will say, it's one thing to sit there watching a show or watching a game on television and shouting out the answers and thinking, oh, great, I got that one. I know what that one is. Once you're there on the set of the show, it's a little bit different. It's like, geez, this doesn't look the same from this side of the camera. To be honest, when I had signed up for that, of course, you had to write in. It wasn't go onto the internet and make the application. You had to write into the show, and then they would call you, which was a novel thing. And that, yes, back then it was a rotary dial on the phone.
Of course. And it was a postcard, I bet. It was a postcard in the mail.
Yes, it was. It was interesting. And ironically, where the show was taped was about a 20-minute drive from where I lived. So it made things much easier. But at the time, I'd signed up for it. They called me, and my date was set for going down to be a contestant.
That's wonderful.
Well, it was, but it was also a little nerve-wracking because the date of the taping, I had an abscessed tooth, and I got
over one of those myself. It's horrible.
It is. Well, yeah. I happened to be a little buzzed on Tylenol 3s. So everything was just, hey, this is cool. I can do this. Not a problem.
Yeah, you were on definition enhancing drugs.
That's exactly what it was. I wasn't intimidated by it. So I went with the moment and enjoyed it thoroughly.
Well, I think that's great advice for any future contestant. When in doubt, Tylenol 3.
Yes, skip
calm
the
you
abscess.
Right down. That's right. That's right.
Don't go through the pain of the abscess. But
sure.
I was surprised I made it through as I did.
Let's talk for a minute about what appealed to you about the game Definition. It's funny. Canadian game shows exist in this sort of alternate reality to us here in the States, where there are so many long-running shows and and programs that are part of Canadian pop culture. Definition, I think, being one of those. It's the longest running Canadian game show I think there's ever been. What about that game with its hangman and wordplay and sort of clever groan-inducing puns? What about all of that attracted you and made you want to play the game?
I had a nickname growing up, and that was Wordy. So everything to do with words, I would have competitions, Scrabble competitions with my mom. We would sit around and I would make up the words, and we would always challenge each other because that's not in the dictionary, and we'd have to prove it to each other. So I've always enjoyed fun with words and just the different things that it's so many games and activities that can come out of words. And how funny they can be and how entertaining they can be and what you do with it.
Sure. Oh, I'm a big fan of word games. I think word games make some of the best game shows. Definition is one of them. Lingo is one of them. Scrabble is another. I love anything with words and letters and anagrams. So I'm completely on board with that. I think they used to call me encyclopedia when I was younger because I could spell anything. So it shows what they knew.
Exactly. Well, and as a child in public school, I think right up until grade 8, there was only one spelling test that I ever had an error on, and it was the word road, whether it was road into town, the road that you were walking on. And I had the wrong spelling of that, and I'll never forget it.
Oh no, the dreaded synonym.
Yes, exactly.
Oh no, I'm sorry, not a synonym. That's a homophone. It sounds the same, but it's a different
homonym.
Homonym.
Homonyms are words that sound the same but are spelled differently. And yep, I spelled it differently. But I've just always prided myself on being able to spell and use words.
Sure. And again, that, definition is a game that requires a great command of the English language. It's a lot of lateral sort of out of the box thinking and listening to the clue and sort of analyzing it. What does this word mean? What could that be referring to? And it's one of my favorites because it's so cozy. It's a very cozy atmosphere compared to a show like Wheel of Fortune, which I think might be definition's sort of closest American analog. It's, hangman on TV. The subject matter is different, but
yes,
definition felt like a very comfortable set. You got the the feeling, and I think this comes across on other Canadian shows too, that everybody you're seeing, you're among friends. And I think even Jim Perry, the host, used to say that once in a while. The contestant was there. So you say you're among friends, and that carries through. I wonder if that's something that you felt during your time on Definition, as short as it was. I mean, you were there for the whole tape day. I wonder if you felt that warmth.
It was a very comfortable environment. I think what did make things less imposing was the fact that you didn't have the audience like you do on the game shows nowadays, where they're all cheering for you. You just sat there on a bench or on bleachers and you waited for your turn. So it's not as though you had hundreds of pairs of eyes staring at you while you tried to figure out the puzzle, or if you blundered on the pronouncement of a letter, which people still pick on me about that one, because I would say Z, not Z. So that
I noticed that.
I
did notice that. Yes, you did. You said Z. Everybody says Z on that show because they're in Canada, but you said Z.
Yeah, no, I'm multilingual.
Very impressive.
You like that? It was very comfortable because you didn't have this large studio area for the taping. It wasn't filled with people sitting in the audience. It was, quite honestly, it was similar to sitting at home in front of the television, and you've got the board and you're just working with friends or family trying to figure out the words.
And it's funny, that's exactly why I ask about that atmosphere, because I've talked to a lot of contestants in the process of making this show, and some of them have been on multiple shows, and
Right.
a lot of them started on local game shows. That was their very first one. And a lot of these contestants have sort of relayed how thankful they were that their first TV experience was something relatively low pressure. It was a small studio, small audience, quiet sort of show, so that when they go to something like Jeopardy or The Price is Right, they're sort of used to that atmosphere already. They're not immediately put off by by all the action around them with all those people.
Yeah. You become acclimatized to it, which is wonderful, starting it with a small town show, if you will. Um, it did make things easier for becoming comfortable in the environment. And then again, sitting to be doing the taping and waiting your turn throughout the day. I think I got there at like 9 o'clock in the morning, and my part of the taping happened about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So having that amount of time beforehand and being able to watch as the others were going through their opportunities, that really it diffused any stressors, or it alleviated the anxiety, because as you're sitting there for the period of time that you're getting to know these people who you're sitting beside and having the conversations with. So by the time it was your turn, yeah, it felt like you're sitting there with family.
I've been in situations relating to game shows where I've been there for the whole tape day and my opportunity comes near the end of the day. And I've always said, I think I'd rather have that. I think I'd rather be close to the end because, you already know what to expect by the time by the time you get into your place, and that nervousness of, what if this happens? What if that happens? It sort of melts away. You're already, like you said, sort of acclimatized to that environment.
Yes. Yeah, it does make for, but you just become so much more comfortable.
Tell me what you remember about the day you went to tape your episode of Definition. Now, when you get to the studio, are you aware that you're going to be a contestant?
Yes, at that point, because I had done the, written in the application and everything, and then they go through and they select what I recall of it. They would select the different contestants, and they would say, okay, you can come in on this day, and this is when the taping will take place. So if you were selected and you got that phone call, then it was a sure thing. You were going to get on the show. How successful you might have been, well, that's entirely up to how things play out.
Sure.
But when we got there, it was okay, you're going to be on, you're going to go in. They had a particular order, I'm assuming, because I think there was about 30 of us that were there. So, they would say, okay, this group of people is going on first, so you can sit here, you can do this. Next group, this is what you are going to be doing. Like, I guess nowadays it'd be called pre-registering, but we would do the bulk of that information while we're sitting and waiting for our turn.
Now, as part of that information, is there anything like a test or some way that they gauge your ability to play the game?
Nope. It's like you're a body, you're breathing.
Wow.
You can have
Just
a
get
chance.
up there.
Pretty much, yes. Well, hey, they let me on there, and I was, as I said.
That's very interesting because there's such a rigorous process through which contestants go, especially for, things like Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy. And so, God, that sounds like so much fun. I would love to go just sit in a show, maybe get called up and not have to do anything. All I need is my face. Yeah, let's do it.
Pretty much, yes. And I mean, when you think of it though, too, I mean, this was a Canadian game show, so it's not like we had like big prizes to be giving away.
Well, that's true. You were playing for the massive pen and pencil set. or
And
the
the
or
brother typewriter.
the brother typewriter, right? Yeah, that was a
Yes.
pretty popular gift. I also noticed in watching your episode, which I explained before we started recording, that I just got off watching your episode of
Yes.
Definition. I noticed that when they give prizes away, it almost seems like the people in the studio don't know what they're winning. They kind of add that in post.
That is exactly it.
So he says, you won this prize. Everybody just sits silent for a few seconds, and then they come back because they don't know what they're giving away yet.
No, and my prize was a 12-inch copper flambe pan.
Oh, wonderful. It's funny though, even things like that you win on a game show that you might not use in your everyday life. I tend to keep them longer than I would had I not won them on a game show. I
Yes,
wonder how long you kept that flambe pan.
Oh, golly. I think it was about 5 years, and it was only because I was moving that I ended up, it has sat in the box the entire time.
Right.
But every once in a while, I would, of course, pull it out and go, look, I was a contestant on Definition. Do, 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 do. And
That's
so,
right. The theme song. That's right. It's funny how many people associate that theme song with Austin Powers because it was such a popular film
Yes.
series, but it was a part of Canadian pop culture decades before that.
It was, and it was comical. As I mentioned, I would pull the thing out and go, see, I was on TV and this is what I won. And again, back then it was, wow, that's awesome.
Right. Well, I think even today it's still a very interesting story because it's a fondly remembered show.
It is.
Tell me what else you remember about the experience of playing the game. You're playing with celebrity partners. You have Jim Perry right next to you, who at this
He
point
is
is
tall.
yeah. I've heard that. I've heard that Jim Perry was very tall.
Yes. And so the set, we're of course sitting, and then Jim Perry is he's standing between the two desks. And we were up on a platform. You had to take about maybe an 8-inch step up to sit in the chair
Right.
at the desk. He was standing on the floor and he was still taller than everybody.
Wow.
Yes, he was a long, tall drink of water.
Wow. That is
Absolutely
a
charming
massive
man.
human being. Yes, that
Yes.
comes across as well. What a charming host he was. I've heard a lot of positive experiences of contestants who have worked with him on a lot of other shows. I'm glad to hear that holds on Definition as well.
Yeah, he was so natural with it. It's not as though it wasn't that permagrin on the face, kind of like, I'm doing my job, I'm being a host, I'm smiling. It was very natural.
Sure.
And it was natural, and it was he was true to himself for that. Like, he didn't come across as being pretentious or he was just amazing.
Yeah. I understand exactly what you mean. Genuine is the word that comes to mind when I think of somebody like that. He's just very genuine, very authentic. And for a show like that, where you're working with untested contestants that are just being pulled out of the audience, you need a host like that will make them feel at ease and thereby allow the show to proceed the way that it needs to without, contestants, staring with that deer in headlights thing. They're all very comfortable because the host makes them comfortable.
Yes, and that was the entire sense of the taping. The contestants who were on prior to me, everybody was just at ease and was like, yeah, we're just going to walk through this like we're having a conversation. So it was great. It was an experience.
So I took a couple of notes here. Let me bring these up. I took some notes of some of the puzzles that you played on Definition.
2 of them.
2 of them.
Or 3. No, there were 3.
Yeah, 3 in total. Yeah, and you won
Yes.
the first one. So the first one, the definition was astronauts' pastimes,
Yes.
and the answer was spacecraft.
Yes.
And everybody moans. It goes, oh.
Yep. Dad joke.
That's
Yes.
right. The coolest place in the theater is the zero, which I
Yes.
loved that one. That one was
Okay.
fantastic. I think a viewer sent that one in. You must have gotten a T-shirt
Yes,
or something.
that was, I believe he was from down east. I think it was from New Brunswick. He had sent in that question. And of course, interesting that it's zero, not Z row.
Well, that's true. Yes, that's very true. It was almost built as a trap from the start.
It was, and I
Well,
played right into it.
I should explain that part of it. The way that the letters get selected, the first thing a team does is they give a letter to the opposing team. The strategy is that they'll give a letter that's ideally not going to appear in the puzzle. So they always start with a
Correct.
Z or a Q or an X. This puzzle in particular, because Z is such a frequently given letter right off the bat, I can't imagine this puzzle would have been played for very long anyway. Somebody would have gotten it, I think, off the first letter or even second.
It went on for a few passes or guesses back and forth. I can remember when I can't remember the last name, but the celebrity that I was working with, Diane, and I'm going, no, don't pick that one, don't pick that one. And I'm going, I think it's the same as when you're sitting at home and going, come on, it's so easy.
Yeah, you're yelling at the TV, right? And that's right.
Yes,
You have
yeah.
that celebrity partner. How much dialogue are you allowed to have with your partner while you're not guessing? It seems like both teams
Not really much
okay.
of anything.
Okay, because it seemed like there was a lot of, and maybe not in your episode in particular, but in general, there's a lot of discussion of strategy, kind of like when they're off camera. I always wondered how much you get to talk about, what letter you're going to guess next, or
Well, and you have to be mindful that as you're figuring out the solution, you are trying to do it low key so the other team is not picking up on what your guesses might be because you're having that conversation with your teammate. So for the most part, it was waiting until it was your turn to make the selection or give away. Then you could do your little bits of, what do you think of this? What do you think? No, I think take this letter. No, give that letter. So everything was, it was happening. The conversation was happening as you were figuring it out when it was your turn. So you
understood.
couldn't really chatter much about it prior. And the other thing too was you wanted to be listening to what the other team, what they were guessing and giving away and taking as a letter.
Yeah, there's a lot to keep track of in that game, and to do that on camera under the lights and in front of the audience as small as it was is it's a pretty daunting task to some people. How nervous were you for that aspect of the experience, the aspect of the entertainment, being on camera, and how were you going to look, how were you going to sound? How worried were you about those things?
I would say average, like anybody else would be. Like, you've got to think too, way back then, we didn't have the sound recordings and all of the equipment that we do now. I think my biggest fear was blundering, like saying a word incorrectly, or like just when I'm trying to say, oh, gee, I think I will take this letter, Jim, making sure that I didn't screw up when I was talking. Outside of that, it was, I think that's where most of the worry and the concern is just speaking properly and if I'm going to be heard correctly. Because I know that, and as you watch the clip, there is a part where I said the word or the letter, and then Jim says, I'm sorry, what was that word again? Or what was that? What letter? So I think that's where most of my hesitation or fear or worry is if I'm going to be heard and if I'm pronouncing things correctly.
Right. And I'm sure that that's something that, and you might not remember this, but I'm sure that that's something that the people in charge of putting you on the show remind you going up there, be clear with what you're saying. Say N as in Nancy if you need to. Say M as in Mary if you need to. Differentiate your letters because we can only, they can only go by what they hear.
Correct. Yeah.
So
and go ahead.
So you played. So you played 3 puzzles. You won one. I'm sorry, the last one here. How a person feels when the doctor fixes their broken leg. They feel downcast.
Yes.
Which took me. That one was all right. I give that one a 6 out of 10. The other one, I think they used the same clue for the next puzzle in the game after yours, and I like that one better. I think it was Bone Tired. I like that one a little bit more.
One, yes, I would agree with that.
You played 3 puzzles. You won one, and you went away with the consolation prize. And that was that flambe pan that you mentioned? Was that
yes,
okay.
12-inch copper flambe pan.
Wonderful. And the experience of having been on Definition, how long did you wait between the time you taped the show and the time you saw it on TV? Assuming you were able to see it on TV back then.
Golly, do you know that part I could not honestly recall. I think just because of the fact that it could have been a couple of months. It could have been like 2 months to 6 months. Back then, it seemed like an eternity. I want to guess that it was maybe 6 months before I was able to see the episode.
Yeah, that's a pretty long while. I've talked to contestants who were on shows back then and never got to see it until maybe, recently with the advent of YouTube and things like that, which that would I'd be so fascinated to see how I look back then, especially if I never got to see it before.
It was, I remembered how I looked, but when my coworkers watched the clip as Ryan had brought it in, and one of my coworkers.
Wait a second. Let's hold on to that. Let's hold on to that for just a second, because I think, and I don't know if Ryan can hear me. I'm sure you're on headphones, but I think I might want to bring Ryan in for this part because I want to hear his reaction to seeing it as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I can ask him to join us, Ryan.
Yes.
Come on down. You're the next contestant.
Yeah,
Okay.
right. Come on in.
You know what? Hold on 2 seconds. I'll grab a set of earphones that we can both listen at the same time.
Okay,
Alrighty.
that's fine. I'm gonna ask you one more thing while he's doing that anyway.
Christian, hold
Certainly.
for station identification, please.
Will do. Thank you. So when we talk about game shows of the 70s and 80s, especially the ones...
We're going to switch those ones out. So just give it a second, Christian. We're going to switch
Hold
the
on one
earphones out.
second.
Oh, okay. Got it.
You worked these things before?
Yeah, I
you
guess
sure?
so. Okay. You take one, I take one. It's not perfect, but it'll work. So
All right.
that's a left ear, I think so.
Okay.
I'm leaving all of this in, just so you know.
I know. And we're both here now, Christian.
Okay, wonderful. So real quick, I do want to ask Gail very quickly. Talking about the game shows of the 70s, of the 80s, especially the celebrity-driven shows, there are things like Pyramid and Definition and Match Game and things like that. It's this era where the celebrities really take the game super seriously, and they're very invested in the success of their contestant partner. And I think to a certain degree, the celebrities are invested these days as well. But celebrities took games much more seriously back then. I wonder if that is a similar notion to what you felt as one half of a celebrity contestant team. Did you really feel like your celebrity was pulling for you, or was very good at the game?
Quite honestly, I can't recall 100%, but for the most part, I feel it was just, okay, we're both there to play a game. It's not like there was a lot of riding on it for her. It was just, we're here to entertain, let's do this. Again, I think that was the other part of it, being it provided that relaxed environment. Like, you didn't get the feeling from the celebrity that, you got to get this, don't screw up. It was very relaxed. There wasn't the pressure from them. They may have been feeling pressure, but it was not, you didn't feel it. It
Sure.
wasn't, it wasn't obvious. It was more, let's enjoy this.
Yeah, I always wonder if celebrities feel that same pressure that contestants do, especially like you mentioned, Gail, about, what if I say the wrong letter? What if I say the wrong word inadvertently and I mess this up for myself? I always wonder if that pressure is any more intensified on the part of the celebrity, where they say, I hope I don't say the wrong word and cost this person, however much money or whatever prize. So that's interesting. That's an interesting insight. And now we're joined by television's Ryan Vickers. Hi, Ryan.
Hey, Christian, thanks for having me on. I did not mean to ambush. This was your request. I want the listeners to know that.
I brought you in for several reasons. One, because I am very appreciative that you found somebody who was on definition for me to talk to, and we're having a wonderful time.
I mean, Gail might have told you, I waited 13 years for this thing to surface. And I was delighted when it did.
Yeah, tell me about that wait, because this is the discovery of all these episodes of Definition is a very recent milestone. It's Craig over at bonusround.ca who very graciously is sponsoring this season of Tell Us About Yourself. But he, through his efforts, unearthed something over 1,000 episodes of Definition, right, over its 15 years on TV.
It's an amazing amount. So when I moved, Gail was the superintendent, I guess, of the building I moved into, and we struck up a friendship from day one. It was wonderful that way, and it still is wonderful. But I find that, having my game show background, people takes a couple times and they're like, yeah, so I was on this game show. And, they sort of let their guard down. And then, I remember being at a scuba diving club one time, and there was a cameraman from CTV. I'm like, hey, so is this a thing that exists? And, you talk about costs of trying to get someone to look for it and things like that. So fast forward to when Bonus Round unearthed the episodes, I must admit I was quite delighted and made some correspondence and sort of kept a lookout. And Gail was really good. It's going on a 40-year-old memory, but she had one of the celebrities there. So I had been playing for a couple of seasons and saw that this new season popped up, and I always watched the episodes, but it became who's the celebrity? Oh, Stuart Gillard, maybe. And then I found it one glorious Monday night about 4 weeks ago, and it was all I could do to hold it in, and then ambush her at work the next day.
Oh, that's so wonderful. And how did you inform her that her episode was available to be
I texted the night before. I was like, hey, I got a question for you, and started playing it sort of cool and close to the vest. And then I thought, oh no, I can't tell her on the phone. That won't be fun. So I know where Gail works, and I just showed up with my iPad, and then that's one of those, it doesn't matter how much data costs, it's totally worth it, and started streaming it. And just, as someone who had been looking for it, like I said, over a decade, it was just the happiness of finding it. And Christian, and something like Definition was basically the great holy grail of Canadian game shows that we all pretty much had resigned ourselves to never showing up. And I'm so happy that the wonderful person behind bonusround.ca took the time to go and get that done. And, and I know that some of the episodes aren't in broadcast quality and are not, they just haven't weathered a 40-year-old storm. But thankfully Gail's did, and I was just a delightment. And I know she's been sharing the good news with her friends and family as well, so that it makes me really happy to discover that, and things we thought lost forever, right?
It's wonderful. And talking about that discovery, because again, this is a show that was on from, I think it was 74 to 89. It was like 15 years, and for a long time, it was really only a handful of bits of footage that was around representing the show.
On YouTube and things like that, right?
Right, things recorded from home and stuff. And all of a sudden, to have so many episodes be discovered, in any other facet of entertainment, this would be a massive story. If suddenly, a dozen unreleased movies by some famous director were found, or some, massive catalog of songs by some, musician were found, it would be a huge story. And I feel like it should get more attention, because it is such a significant show. Gail, tell me your reaction to seeing yourself on TV for the first time in that many years. What was that reaction like?
Well, I watched it with my coworkers
That was your first mistake.
Yes.
I mean, to be fair, Christian, she didn't have a choice. I kind of really did ambush her at work at about 8:15 in the morning. So
Oh no,
Yeah.
I think it's the most fun way to do it for sure.
It is. Of course, I'm looking at it, and ironically, I said to Ryan, I said, I could tell him when it was taped, what year, who one of the celebrity hosts were. And I could pinpoint what I was wearing the day of the taping. And then when I saw it, I just went, oh crap, have I ever got old?
That's always the first reaction, isn't it? What happened to me?
Yes, yeah. It's like, oh my gosh. And then we were all watching it, and one of my coworkers, she's much younger. She's standing there and she's watching it, and then she's looking. Ryan is just giggling like a schoolgirl because he was just so blasted excited for the entire thing. My other coworker, we've been working together for the last 10 years, so she has heard my stories of the where I grew up, the celebrities I grew up with, being on definition, the whole bit. So she knew what it was all about. But the younger coworker, she's standing there and she's going, that voice sounds familiar. The face kind of looks familiar. And she thought I was Julia Roberts' mom. I don't know why. And so I'm just like, okay. She clued in to the fact that it was a much older show. That taping was older than she was, so if that explains anything.
Sure. Yeah. So we're talking like, I don't think we've said the year yet. This is like 84 or 85. Was it a little later than that?
It was 83, March
83.
of 1983.
Okay. Early
Yeah.
80s.
Early 80s.
For better or worse.
Yes, yeah. So she just kept looking at it and she couldn't figure out who it was. And then at one point, Ryan had, I think he had paused the clip, and my coworker's looking, and my other coworker and I and Ryan are just chuckling away. And my coworker said, "Who is that? Why does she sound familiar?" And then I think all three of us at the same time said, "That's Gail." The jaw dropped, and she's going, "No, really? You look so young." Thank you. It was interesting. Yes, I've aged over the years, but apparently that is a natural progression. Ryan is sitting here shaking his head.
Sure.
No, you haven't at all, Gail. But it was
What a doll.
Yes, yeah. I'm gonna have to bring him more baked goodies. I watched that, and then I'm just going like, wow, what a hoot. And to think that was, I was on national television, because way back then, being a Canadian TV station, that was pretty national for us.
Oh,
But,
sure.
Yeah, it was interesting. I had a great time with it. I actually had the opportunity this last weekend to show the clip to my baby brother, and he remembered. He went, "Yeah, isn't that one when you won the pots and pans or something?"
What a legacy.
It is, let me tell you. So we had a great time, and then my sister-in-law and her daughter, they're going, "Was that your natural hair color?" as they stare at my snowy white hair now.
How
I was like,
wonderful.
yeah, so it was a great blast from the past.
Sure. Oh, of course it was.
And
I've
being
noticed,
able to have proof.
yeah. Yeah, and I was going to ask how did you explain this experience to people before you were able to pull out your phone and show them the clip? I mean, did you have it on tape at all, or was it just something that you told people?
Oh, I would tell them about my, because quite often I will chat when I'm chatting with people, and I'll say, "Oh yeah, I've got a dear friend who is my game show guru, and I would talk about the number of different game shows that he has been on, and just the different things, and how even when he's interacting with kids, how he captivates their attention, and he is just phenomenal about it. So, and then I will say, yeah, and I was on a TV game show too. And I mean, I have other claims to fame as a kid. Most people, they'll say, oh yeah, I grew up with Mr. Dress Up. I went, yeah, so did I. Well, everybody did at that age. Yes, but I played in his house.
That's
So
right.
that was it was exciting because, I mean, again, another Canadian icon, and the history and legacy that he has left. So bringing it into conversations, and when I say to them, oh yeah, I was on Game Show Definition, and of course that immediate reaction, oh yeah, Definition. So
That's right. The way everybody does Here with Jeopardy goes do 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 do.
exactly.
Iconic music.
It is.
Yep.
And so anytime I would say, yeah, I was on Definition, and then I would also say, yep, and I have a friend who has been searching endlessly to find the tapings. And so now that I can, I will say, you remember I told you about? Well, here you go. Here's the proof. Yeah, sometimes I'm a little hesitant to actually show the clip because, again, it's like, wow, you look so different. And yes, life will do that to you.
I understand. I can't be in the same room with footage of me playing anyway. I have to leave. I have to go next door.
Yeah, it's like when you're listening to yourself on a recording, like on a tape recorder or something like that. It's like, oh,
I've never heard the sound of my own voice, so I don't know what you're talking about.
I mean, to be fair to both of you, I've watched my Wheel of Fortune bonus round clip for over 2 decades, and I still yell at the screen hoping that one day I will say gopher, and it never happens.
Right.
Just one day I'm pulling for
hindsight. Right? Ryan, how gratifying it must have been to finally find that footage. That must have felt like a life quest accomplished.
It was, especially because there was Stuart Gillard, one of the celebrities that Gail had told me about, was in a different season. And when I saw the first batch of Stuart Gillard episodes pop up, I'm like, oh my goodness. And then she wasn't there, and I was genuinely got it. I was like, no, she was convinced that was who it was. And then another season popped up, and there it was. And it really was. And I've been able to reunite several people with their episodes over the years, whether they were just in the audience or actually as a contestant, and just the happiness that provides to people. And you know what? Ultimately, I say, here it is. You can, you do what you need, because some people just want to see it for themselves and don't want to admit to it, but that's okay. But for Definition, like we said, the fact that we thought these things would never surface again, and thankfully they have, and especially because Gail's episode popped up, I was smirking to myself when I found it, and I, sat on it for 24 hours, but that was about it. I was pretty much exploding inside, Christian. So it pretty much did, yeah.
Almost. So. Let's I love it. I'm it's like Ryan, this in particular, and Gail, I think maybe you're learning this from just from hearing the conversation, but when little bits of our world are found on tape, it's a big celebration for us, because there are some shows that are so underrepresented and so rare. I think, honestly, and I'm thinking of the Canadian game shows that I love, other than Definition, my favorite is the Mad Dash, and I'm so disappointed that there aren't some more episodes of that around.
You know what? And I've had the opportunity through Reach for the Top to talk to Sydney, because Sydney, the director, who he used to Reach for the Top when we were on TV Ontario in the 2000s, and it was nice to. It's unfortunate no more episodes are up, but a lot of the stuff that aired on Game TV a number of years ago were due to him recording them personally, right? And it's just so nice that some people have got that, but and seeing for Canada's game shows, seeing the footage go up of the Mad Dash.
The pilot episode, right?
Yeah, and the pilots, yeah.
Yeah, it's so wonderful when examples of shows we've never seen before, haven't seen in a long time, are found. How do I want to ask? Well, Gail, I remember you mentioned baked goods a few minutes ago, and Ryan introduced me because he visited me. He planned.
Yes.
Visited maybe is not the word. I think ambushed was better. So.
Ambush is Ryan's favorite word.
Yeah.
I reacted like you threw a watermelon at my chest. Like I just landed against what I was not expecting. For months, Ryan and my wife planned this ambush, this absolute boonswoggle of a visit, and on that trip, he introduced me to my very first butter tart. Oh, what a Tell me again what goes into a butter tart. I remember the taste of it. I remember it being just like the richest, most wonderful thing, and I was so upset they were gone. What's in a butter tart?
It is eggs, brown sugar, vanilla, butter, raisins, and you blend all of everything but the raisins. You blend that all together, and then you put some raisins on the bottom of the tart shell.
And you know what? To be fair, raisins or no raisins, your butter tart is a national concern here in Canada. For those who enjoy it, like there are some people who are like it's raisins or no raisins. Like it's a very mentally, the line has been drawn, Christian.
Yeah. Well, and there's also walnuts or no walnuts.
Yeah, pecans to a point as well.
So, but I don't know about
tends
that.
to be the biggest. Like I'm not having with raisins, and people like it's a huge deal.
Yeah, people will say that chewing on raisins is like chewing on a wool mitt.
Oh, that's not true at all. I don't think there were raisins in the one you gave me, Ryan, but I could do a butter.
I'm pretty sure I brought the plane just to not stir the pot.
Yeah. Oh, I love raisins. No, that would have been wonderful. But I'm so appreciative that you did that. And I might edit this out, but I might not. I might leave it because I think he's probably listening. All right. Do you know Robert McKee?
I do. Yes, I will 100% admit for the first time publicly, Robert McKee is the one that I pinched my strategy when I went on the French version of Lingo. 100% I stole his strategy. So,
on Motu,
okay
right. So. Oh yeah, he is absolute master at lingo. But Gail, I interviewed him a few months ago for the podcast. We had a great time, and for Christmas, he mailed me a pie. So I got a big sticky package in the mail.
That goes okay through in the mail?
It came in. You know what? There was a little. All right, so I'll tell you the pie. It was a pecan pie, and it was soaked in Crown Royal liqueur.
Well, that's the only way to eat a pecan pie.
I mean, that sounds great, Christian.
It was the most decadent thing I have ever. Oh, it was wonderful. He sent a note, thank you for the podcast. Had a wonderful time. Keep doing what you're doing. It was wonderful. And yeah, the pie came out okay. A little bit of the sticky, the
filling.
The goo came out of like the side of the, but it held up. So I cut myself a piece. It was the sweetest thing I've ever eaten in my entire life. It was so sweet. I don't think I even told him this. It was so sweet. I took a bite and a piece of my wisdom tooth fell out.
And do you feel smarter for that now?
I can neither confirm nor deny the effect that it's had on myself.
Well, so again, it's, you've got the Crown Royal. That cures anything.
Oh, it sure does. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I fixed the tooth right back up. Yeah, we're good to go.
There you go.
Yeah.
A little bit of the pie filling, a raisin in there, smooths everything over.
That's
Not
right.
Missing a thing. Oh, that's too funny. Yeah. The other thing, too, that people will debate about with butter tarts is gooey or not.
Yeah, agreed.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay, so like the thickness of whatever's in the middle.
Yes, you can have like it's, if you think of a fried egg, some people have to have the yolk just and running out. Others, the yolk has to be semi-firm.
And to be fair to what Gail said, the ones I brought to you, Christian, were from a establishment here in Newmarket that has won Best Butter Tart in Ontario multiple times. And when I told them where it was going, they're like, here are your instructions. Don't sully our name.
Oh, that's amazing.
They were and they're very proud of what they do, right? But they were, so every night on that trip, because it took about 4 days to get, if not 4 days drive, but we took our time, Dave and I. And it went back in the freezer every night. They're like, we don't want this to spoil.
Yeah.
Oh, they were wonderful. If I'm not mistaken, they were a little bit runny. but
Yeah,
I remember
I
they
would
were
say
kind of
that's from that
runny.
establishment. Yeah.
Yeah, they're a little runny, but it all the filling also sort of crystallized on the top, so there was a nice gradient in there.
Yeah, and that's from the sugars as it cooks and
Yeah.
then as
Yeah.
it settles. But yeah, and I mean it just adds to it and the way in which the eggs and mixture are done, whether it's whipped or just hand blended, makes all the difference in it too.
I love
Sorry,
that
I'm
all
getting
these
into
years
comments.
of you and I watching Food Network programs like Guys Grocery Games, and now we're having like a 20-minute discussion on butter tarts. This is great. So
It was just one of the highlights of my year, right? Seeing you
oh,
and having that
I'm
butter
glad
tart
for that.
was
I'll bring
wonderful.
more next time.
Oh,
I-
now we'll have to get you hooked on pumpkin roll.
Well, and to be fair, bring it back at game shows for a second. I took Gail in 2018. I had an extra ticket. Someone wasn't able to come, but we went and saw Double Dare live in Rochester, New York. And
Right.
we went to the Strong the next day, and there's pictures of us sitting on the steps with the Sesame Street and
Oh, yeah,
near the
Ernie
Wegmans
Bur-
and that. So when the National Archives of Game Show History opens up, Gail and I are taking a road trip. She's finding about this now. So
Oh yes. Yes,
Oh,
we are
wonderful!
planning on it.
I will meet you there.
yeah,
Yes.
100%.
Yes. Well,
Fantastic.
at the in the museum where Sesame Street and the stairs and everything else, to the one side of it, they had the Ernie and Bert puppets.
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh, I remember that. Yes.
so Ryan and I, we get the puppets, put them on, duck behind the table, and we start having a conversation. And in the voices of Ernie and Bert. And I have 3 kids who are all grown now.
I'm just a big kid.
And I'm a big
Yeah.
kid also.
I know it. We are 3 of a crowd.
Yeah.
And I always told my kids I may get old, but I refuse to grow up. Okay, because that is an option and I'm not wanting to grow.
Tell Us About Yourself. Conversations with Game Show Contestants is hosted, produced, and edited by me, Christian Carrion, from my studio in beautiful downtown Lancaster City, Pennsylvania. Co-executive producer Cory Anotado. Researcher Chuck Donegan. This has been a production of BuzzerBlog, the most popular game show website in the world, in partnership with the National Archives of Game Show History at the Strong National Museum of Play in Rochester, New York. For more information, visit museumofplay.org. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Christian Carrion. Good night. Tell Us About Yourself. Conversations with Game Show Contestants is produced in partnership with the Strong National Museum of Play in Rochester, New York. One of the largest history museums in the United States, and one of the leading museums serving families with highly interactive exhibits and programs. Since 1968, the Strong Museum has been dedicated to exploring the ways in which play encourages learning, creativity, and discovery, and how it illuminates cultural history. And their National Archives of Game Show History. Founded by industry veterans Bob Bowden and Howard Blumenthal, the archive is home to thousands of artifacts representing over 80 years of broadcasting, including props, set designs, video interviews with game show professionals, and other iconic elements from the history of television at play. For more information about the National Archives of Game Show History or the Strong National Museum of Play, visit museumofplay.org or call area code 585-263-2700. Tell Us About Yourself is sponsored by bonusround.ca, streaming Canada's classic game shows on demand. Dive into the golden age of television with thousands of episodes of Canadian series that defined an era from anywhere in the world, all for just $1.99 a month. From iconic shows like Let's Make a Deal and Definition to cult classics like Bumper Stumpers and The Mad Dash, bonusround.ca brings you timeless entertainment that's fun, enlightening, and affordable. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, relive the magic of Canadian television history. Subscribe now at bonusround.ca for $1.99 and turn every night into game show night. And by The Inn at Leola Village. Nestled in the heart of picturesque Pennsylvania, the Inn at Leola Village is a sanctuary of luxury and relaxation. Indulge in the timeless beauty of their historic suites, each meticulously designed to transport you to a bygone era of elegance and grace. Experience the culinary delights of their award-winning Italian restaurant, where every dish is a masterpiece crafted from the finest local ingredients. From romantic getaways to corporate retreats, the Inn at Leola Village offers a haven for every occasion. Unwind at the spa, stroll through the lush gardens, and let the stress of everyday life melt away. Make your reservation today at theinnatleolavillage.com or call the front desk at area code 717-656-7002. The Inn at Leola Village, an oasis of luxury.